Reacting to your Legend of Zelda hot takes, part 6. Welcome back to another episode of reacting to your guys' hot takes or unpopular opinions. Well, a lot of you guys already know what this means. I'll do a quick rundown for any first-time viewers. I asked you guys to submit your hottest Zelda takes and unpopular opinions. A hot take is basically an opinion that goes against the general flow of the fan base, meaning that some of these can get really interesting and sometimes not for the better. You guys submitted a lot of hot takes, so I picked a few that I thought were the most interesting. To change things up, I've decided to add an out of 10 ranking at the end of each hot take based on how much I agree with it. For example, a take that I fully agree with will earn a 10 out of 10, whereas a take I don't agree with will be the opposite. Now that you guys get the idea, let's read some of your hottest Legend of Zelda takes. Vet76 says Zelda fans over-obsess about which games are better than others, and I could not agree more. One thing I've never understood about not only Zelda fans but just video game fans in general is this idea where they have to put down other games in order to push the agenda for their favorite games. Not only am I a huge Zelda fan, but I'm also a huge Persona fan, and I find that this take applies even more for the Persona fanbase than it does for the Zelda one, though they honestly are just as bad. You will constantly see people saying that Breath of the Wild is their favorite game, the old games are their favorite games, and every time they do that, they always have to put down other Zelda games while pushing their own, and it makes no sense to me because at the end of the day, you're a fan of The Legend of Zelda. It's possible to like every game in the franchise, and obviously you can have your personal preferences, but like this guy says, it makes no sense why people obsess this hard over finding which games are better than the others. So this is a take I 100% agree with, meaning I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 on the agreement ranking. I need to find a better name for that. Gerard P9I says, I think that the Triforce hunt in Wind Waker is not only the best part of the game, but my favorite part in any Zelda game. Finding each piece is such a great feeling, and it's a great way to lead up to the final dungeon slash boss. I feel like with every hot takes video, I always have to talk about the Triforce hunt in Wind Waker. Now, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of the Triforce quest, but I will say it has grown on me a lot, especially in recent time. I actually do agree with the second half of the take. It is a really rewarding feeling to find each Triforce piece, and it is a great way to lead up to the final dungeon slash boss. Even if it does kill the momentum and pacing a little bit, it's still pretty fun. But I definitely do not think it is the best part in Wind Waker, and I definitely do not think it is the best part in any Zelda game, or your favorite, as you say. I do not at all agree with that. Meaning I'm gonna give this take probably like a 1.5 out of 10 on the agreement ranking, just because I agree with the second part, but I think the first part is just not even close to me agreeing with it. So yeah, this is a good hot take. This is what I like to see, even if I do not remotely agree with it. Purple Human 145 says, Twilight Princess's art style is beautiful and aged well. This is another topic that I've definitely covered in the past, but I must say that I think Twilight Princess's art style has aged okay. I think it has definitely aged the worst out of any Zelda art style, but I do still think it's really pretty and still looks okay today, just not as good as some of the other games. And I always compare it to Wind Waker, which is an art style that I think has aged perfectly, and since Twilight Princess and Wind Waker were roughly the same era, I always have to look at it and be a little bit disappointed when I look back on Twilight Princess. Though again, I do still really like the art style, and I do think it's really pretty, so I'll give you that half of the take, but I don't think it's aged very well, so I'll give this a 6 out of 10. Kevisaur9889 says, Temple of the Ocean King is a good temple. I will not read the rest of the take. 0 out of 10. Spencism says, Freshly Picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land is genuinely a good game, and I'm sick and tired of the slander in the US. First of all, I don't think I've actually ever seen any slander towards this game. I feel like the only thing that I ever see people say about this game is that they either weirdly like it or wish that it was more popular. I wish I could talk more about this take, but I'll be honest, I've actually never played any of the Tingle games before, but they look kind of fun, and I would like to give them a shot one day. I just haven't done it yet, so I can't really comment on this take. So I will give this a question mark out of 10 because I can't exactly comment on it. But yeah, let me know in the comments section if you guys agree with this take or disagree, for those who have actually played the Tingle games. So maybe about 3 of you. Froom of the Loom says, the timeline is a really cool and fun idea, and people who expect it to be perfect are just taking it too seriously. Yeah, I totally agree with this take. I think saying people who expect it to be perfect are taking it too seriously is a bit harsh. I don't think the timeline is even remotely perfect, but I do still really like it. And I never understand why people do freak out that much about the timeline not being perfect, but people can take it seriously if they want to. I mean, it's totally up to the individual person. I don't take it that seriously. obviously, but I do think the timeline is a really cool idea, so I do totally agree with this take. I'll give this a 9 out of 10. Zenith Mill 22 says, Tantalus is actually an awesome boss design and fight, as long as you try to forget the movie Monsters Inc. For those who don't get the joke, Tantalus is often compared to a character from Monsters Inc. since they look literally the exact same, and that's why that movie is always brought up when talking about Tantalus. I placed Tantalus pretty high on my boss ranking that I did almost a year ago, so this should come as no surprise when I say that I totally agree with this take. I think the boss fight itself is super fun. I don't think the design is that great. I wouldn't really call it awesome. I think it's passable, but I definitely think it's the weakest part of the boss, especially when the build up, the atmosphere, and the actual fight is just so much fun. So I'll give this take an 8 out of 10 since I do agree with most of it. I just don't think the design is that great. AJM Real says, Spirit Tracks is personally my favorite top-down Zelda game, and yes, it's probably my nostalgia talking here. Yeah, it probably is. I mean, you guys already know what my favorite top-down Zelda game is, and arguably my favorite Zelda game ever being A Link Between Worlds. I don't even think Spirit Tracks is close to cracking the top 5 for me. Obviously, you said it's your personal favorite, so I can't really, hate on you for that. You're not really making a claim, you just said it's your personal favorite, but I very much 100% disagree. I don't think it's my least favorite top-down Zelda, but it is nowhere close to being my favorite, so I'll give this take a 2 out of 10 since Spirit Tracks has some stuff going for it, but it is definitely not even close to being my personal favorite top-down 2D Zelda game. So, yeah, 2 out of 10. Sub T-Rex says, Skyward Sword Link is the ugliest version of Link. Now, you guys know how I feel about Skyward Sword Link. That is my personal favorite incarnation of Link, but I don't necessarily think he is the most attractive Link. I would definitely give the role of the ugliest to one of the earlier Links from the Zelda 1, Zelda 2 era Link. I think he's definitely uglier there. And Skyward Sword Link, he's a pretty good looking guy, so I would not disrespect Skyward Sword Link like this. So I definitely disagree with this take. This is a weird take. This is just a really weird part of the video in general, actually. So yeah, 0 out of 10. Don't disrespect Skyward Sword Link, or I'll get mad and delete the comment. I won't do that. And while on the topic of Skyward Sword, Incognito 240 says, Skyward Sword has some of the most interesting and unique characters in the series. And I'd have to absolutely agree. I don't think it has the best character roster in the series, but I do think it's definitely up there. I think some of the best characters in Skyward Sword are some of the best characters in the entire series. And obviously, I don't really want to talk about characters that much in these hot take videos because I am making a character ranking video, which will come out sometime in the next 5 years. But I will say that I think really highly of Skyward Sword's characters, so I will give this take a 9 out of 10. Bread the Gamer says, hot take, Ryan64 is the best Zelda YouTuber by far. It's a hot take because you are so underrated. Oh, come on. Don't me? Come on, guys. Okay. Oh, you guys are so sweet. No, seriously. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Ellen Karst 86 says, Russell and the other members of the Resistance are highly underrated and underutilized in Twilight Princess. I'd have loved to see more subplot revolving around going on covert missions to fight Zant/Ganondorf, operating out of Telma's bar. Even if these were just made into some side content or side quests, it would have been super fun to see more stuff revolving around the Resistance. Even the characters themselves could have used a little bit more of an interesting backstory. Like, I'm pretty sure Ashe in the Twilight Princess manga is actually connected to the Snow Peak ruins in some way, which is super cool and interesting, and I wish that was in the actual game. But it just goes to show that the Resistance were kind of underutilized, like this take says, so I totally agree with this. I will give this an 8 out of 10. Swog's Main 4U says, the pan flute in Spirit Tracks play fine. No. No, it does not. Noah Wedlock says, the My side quest in A Link Between Worlds is the best in the series. The perfect collectathon which encourages the most exploration and best use of all items and abilities. Now, you guys know that I love some A Link Between Worlds praise. I would not say the My side quest is even remotely the best side quest in the entire series, but I can slightly get behind it being the best collectathon in the series. I definitely prefer it over some of the other collectathons in the series like the Korok Seeds or Skulltula tokens, and I think finding the Mai was actually the most enjoyable and it was done the best of the collectathons, if that makes sense. Like the addition of the map and the sound effects that play for each Mai make it more enjoyable than tedious, for the most part at least, and it also gives you some pretty cool rewards being item upgrades and eventually the Great Spin Attack. So I can totally get behind this being the best collectathon, but I do not think it's the best side quest in the series, meaning I'll give this take a 6 out of 10. Evan Joseph 505 says, Four Swords Adventures has some of the most underrated combat in the 2D games. The amount of unique combos you can do between the four is stellar. This is a take I haven't heard anybody else say before, and I totally agree with it. The combat in Four Swords Adventures is a lot of fun. I actually really like the moments where they give you a bunch of enemies to just mow down. It can be so much fun to, you know, customize the four links in their own unique patterns and just take out a ton of enemies with only a few swings. It's a lot of fun and it's really stimulating actually, so I really do like the combat in Four Swords Adventures. This is a great take. I will give this a 9 out of 10. Sunny Lost Kiddo says, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks are way overhated. Both games feature two of the best characters in the franchise, IMO, Spirit Tracks Zelda, and Linebeck. Like, come on. And that's unfortunately the only thing those games have going for them. I genuinely think that Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass are closer to being underhated than they are overhated. I feel like most people are just kind of indifferent about the games, where I think that they are genuinely probably bottom 6 Zelda games like ever, and it's not even close. Though like you said, they do feature a very great cast of characters like Zelda and Linebeck, but unfortunately that is basically the only thing that these games actually have going for them, where I genuinely think those characters are great, but everything else is just good to mediocre and sometimes even really bad. So I definitely disagree with this take, but I do like what you said about Linebeck and Zelda, so I'll give this take a 3 out of 10. Zashes6552 says, I actually love the Divine Beasts in Breath of the Wild. I think they use the anatomy of each animal really well, and their role to the plot and backstory is interesting enough. I've actually grown to love the Divine Beasts a lot more than I used to. I put them in like the bottom 5 in my 3D dungeon ranking, which I think is still a pretty decent place for them, but I definitely love them a lot more than I used to. Like you mentioned earlier, I think they use the anatomy of the animal very well, and I love the way that you can rotate and move the Divine Beasts, which will change the way that you look at the dungeon. It's really neat. I do wish that they looked a little bit more unique from one another, because honestly, when you're inside the Divine Beast, it's really hard to tell them apart since they look nearly identical. I wouldn't say that I necessarily love them, since obviously they did replace the traditional Zelda dungeons, which I like a lot more, but I've definitely grown to love them more than I used to, which definitely counts for something. So I'll give this take probably a 4 to 3 out of 10. Let's go 3 out of 10, just because for now I still don't love them, but if I replay Breath of the Wild, my opinion might change for the better or for the worse. And the final take for this video, Nyx Crow says, I don't get why so many people hate the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom soundtrack. It's great, especially the Breath of the Wild one has a lot of bangers. I think both games have a lot of bangers, but I might agree with you in saying that Breath of the Wild is slightly better, but Tears of the Kingdom has so many great songs as well. Honestly, the soundtracks in general are just so good. They do such a good job at capturing the more empty Hyrule, especially in Breath of the Wild, with all of like the ambient music, and a lot of that ambient music is just so pretty, and it's really well done music. And I can understand if people would still prefer the traditional Zelda soundtracks. I mean, still, I would not probably have Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom in my top 5 soundtracks in Zelda, but I think that some of the songs from those games are like easily top tier in the franchise, like Colgara's theme, Attack on Varuda, any of the Divine Beast themes. Some of the ambient themes are so good, and even a lot of the character themes, like Rivali's theme, Daruk's theme, is just so unbelievably good. And like you said, I never understood the hate for it. I have always been a huge fan of both of these soundtracks, and I don't understand why people would not like them. So yeah, I'll give this take a perfect 10 out of 10. I 100% agree with everything you said here. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate everyone who submitted their hot take. I apologize if I didn't get to reading yours. There were a ton of comments under this post, and I realistically can't react to them all. I also wanted to quickly thank you guys for 20,000 subscribers. This milestone means the world to me and is something I never thought I'd be able to achieve, and it's all thanks to you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.